I had always considered late-night Walmart trips relaxing. There was something about the quiet hum of the fluorescent lights and the nearly empty aisles that felt calming after a long day. That night, I just needed to pick up a few essentials: milk, cereal, and some cleaning supplies. It was around 10:30 p.m. when I noticed him for the first time. A man in a hoodie was lingering by the entrance as I walked in. His face was partially obscured, and I thought he was just another shopper taking his time. I grabbed a cart and started down the cereal aisle, mentally running through my shopping list. A few minutes later, I saw him again, standing at the end of the aisle. He wasn't looking at the shelves or picking anything up. He was just standing there. I felt a small chill creep up my spine but brushed it off. Maybe he was waiting for someone, or just indecisive about what to buy. I turned down another aisle, but when I looked back, he was there again, keeping his distance but always in sight. The uneasy feeling grew stronger. I started weaving through the store randomly, testing to see if it was a coincidence. It wasn't. No matter where I went, produce, frozen foods, even the electronics section, he followed, his presence like a shadow. At one point, I stopped abruptly, pretending to examine a shelf. When I glanced back, he ducked behind a display. My heart began to race. I grabbed my phone and texted a friend, telling them I thought someone was following me. "Call the police if it gets worse," they replied. Worse came quickly. As I headed toward the checkout lanes, I caught him in my peripheral vision, standing uncomfortably close, pretending to examine a rack of candy. I could feel his eyes on me. I tried to play it cool, paying for my items while subtly looking for an employee or security guard. My hands trembled as I swiped my card. When I finished, I decided to walk straight to the parking lot without looking back. The automatic doors slid open, and the cold night air hit me. My car was parked far from the entrance, under a flickering streetlight. As I walked, I heard footsteps behind me. They were steady, deliberate. I turned sharply. He was there, about 15 feet away, holding nothing, just staring at me. I didn't hesitate. I ran. My cart clattered against the pavement as I sprinted to my car. I jumped in, locking the doors and dialing 911. Through the windshield, I could see him standing in the shadows, watching. The operator kept me calm until a patrol car arrived about 5 minutes later. The man didn't run. He stayed where he was, his hands in his hoodie pocket as the officers approached him. They questioned him briefly, and I watched from my car as one officer suddenly reached for the man's pocket. He pulled out a large knife. My stomach turned. One of the officers came over to my car, his face serious. "It's a good thing you called us," he said. "This could have ended differently." The man was taken into custody, and I gave a statement before heading home. But even with the police's reassurance, I couldn't shake the feeling of his eyes on me and the way he lingered in the shadows. I haven't gone back to that Walmart since. It was supposed to be a quick trip. My dad needed a few things for the next day's breakfast, and he'd let me tag along, promising I could pick out a snack for myself. At 8 years old, I loved trips like these, wandering through the brightly lit aisles, everything neatly arranged, and the promise of candy or chips at the end. We got to the supermarket late, around 10 p.m. My dad parked near the entrance and grabbed a cart. "Stay close, okay?" he said as we walked inside. I nodded, but when we got to the cereal aisle, something colorful caught my eye in the next aisle over. "Can I go look at the snacks?" I asked. He hesitated for a moment, but then relented. "Just stay in the candy aisle and don't go anywhere else. I'll be right here." I darted off, excited, and soon found myself in a world of bright wrappers and sugary possibilities. I was kneeling to look at the gummy bears on the bottom shelf when I heard a voice behind me. "Hey there," the man said. His tone was light and friendly, but something about it made me freeze. I turned and saw him, a tall, thin man with a baseball cap pulled low over his face. He was holding a bag of candy in one hand and had a strange smile, one that didn't look quite right. "You like gummies?" he asked, crouching down to my level. "These are my favorite, too." He held out the bag as if offering it to me. I didn't know what to do. My dad always told me not to talk to strangers, but this was a public place, and he seemed nice enough. I nodded silently, gripping the bag of gummy bears I'd already picked up. "You're here all alone?" he asked casually, leaning in just a little closer. No, I said quickly, stepping back. My dad's here. His smile faltered for a second, then returned, wider than before. Oh, that's good. Where is he? In the cereal aisle, I said, my voice shaking. Why don't we go find him together? He stood up and gestured for me to follow. My stomach twisted. Something was wrong, and I could feel it in the pit of my gut. I shook my head. I'm fine. I'll just wait here. The man's face changed then. The friendly smile vanished, replaced by a cold, hard expression. He reached out and grabbed my arm. Not hard, but enough to make me panic. Come on, he said, his voice lower now, almost a whisper. I'll help you. I yanked my arm away and bolted down the aisle, screaming for my dad. My sneakers squeaked against the tile floor as I ran, tears streaming down my face. Dad, I yelled, rounding the corner. He was there, pushing the cart, a look of confusion quickly turning to alarm as he saw me. What's wrong, he asked, kneeling down to grab my shoulders. There was a man, I sobbed. He tried to grab me. My dad didn't hesitate. He stood and scanned the aisles, his face tight with anger. Stay here, he said, then marched toward the candy aisle. I stayed put, clutching the cart, trembling. An employee noticed me and came over, asking if I was okay. By the time my dad returned, he was on the phone with the police. He's gone, he told the employee, his jaw clenched. But we're not leaving until they get here. The police arrived quickly. They reviewed the security footage and spotted the man following me into the candy aisle. The sight of him on the screen made my skin crawl. He had loitered near the exit after I ran, but as soon as my dad approached, he slipped out of the store and disappeared into the parking lot. The officers promised to patrol the area and check nearby cameras. They told my dad he'd done the right thing calling them immediately. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the man smile and felt his grip on my arm. My dad stayed by my side, promising he'd never let anything like that happen again. I still love gummy bears, but I haven't been able to walk down a candy aisle alone since.